the Refuge and Bodhicitta. Sangha Churanzagi Chunam Ha Chanchu Padu Dabni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyan Gipezonam Hidrola Pancha Sangha Drupasho Sangha Churanzagi Chunam La Chanchu Padu Dabni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyan Gipezonam Hidrola Pancha Sangha Drupasho Sangha Churanzagi Chonam La Chanchu Badu Dabni Kapsuchi Dagi Chenyen Gibe Sonam Rola Panche Sangha Drupashu. Okay, setting a most profound Mahayana motivation for engaging in listening, reflecting on these precious teachings on a refuge, taking refuge, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and what that means. And to have this precious opportunity in our lives, to have this time, all the conditions that have come together, is a vast accumulation of merit since beginningless time, ripening right now in this moment, bringing us together for our individual and collective karma, ripening in these positive conditions arising. I think how precious it is to be able to continue on in this precious human rebirth, engaging in the Dharma, so rare in this world. Okay, so yeah, I was thinking, reflecting in the last few days that how very timely it is to have teachings on refuge when we're coming up on this Friday to Chokyi, which is the celebration of the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma. In other words, bringing the Dharma into this world by Shakyamuni Buddha, which is also International Sangha Day. So it's quite relevant to our, this week to reflect on, just what all that is in terms of, taking refuge, what the objects of refuge, both the historical Buddha, but also the enlightened Buddha in terms of what that all represents and what it means for us to go for refuge. We also have the great fortune at the same time to be hosting Geshe Tenzin Zopa, the most amazing Lama, who had made his previous teacher, Geshe Lama Konchog. Have we gone off? We might have gone off. Why have we gone off? Is it just me?
I think it's pulled your clothing down.
Is that no? Anyway, I was doing so well.
You are here. Oh,
I'm here. I am here. I think so.
But you're just not coming through the speaker.
I'm not coming through the speaker.
Hold on. Oh, there's a
lean that way.
there's an angle to it.
There's an angle. Okay. Let me just adjust the angle. Here's what happened. How's that? No? How's that? How's that? How's that? There's an angle. Is that the angle? Is that? How's that?
No, I think that's far more unpleasant for you.
That works. Okay. If I no.
I'm thinking I've caused entanglement.
Yeah, I don't want to choke on that.
No. Do you mind if I come around?
I wonder why. How's that? Yeah. Great. I'll try not to move. Okay. Yes, hosting Geshe Tenzin Zopa, so that on that evening, on Friday evening, Geshe Zopa will be elaborating, particularly on. Of course, it says all about Lama Zopa Rinpoche, but we're talking about it in terms of the importance of Sangha these days in the West. And I was just having some discussions as part of we have the IMI, International Mahayana Institute, which is the organisation within FPMT for monks and nuns, and we're just having a Zoom meeting on Friday. And the fact that from the messages we're receiving, how much more important Sangha will be in the West, like from now on. It makes sense because we've got all these high lamas, our traditional Tibetan lamas who are passing away. That was Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and I wouldn't want to say passing away, but also Ken Rinpoche, Geshe Tashi Sering in Queensland, who taught at Chenrezig Institute for 17 odd years or so, and who is unwell. He hasn't, no, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but anyway, he's rehabilitating from a stroke. Yeah, long way to go. And also Geshe Doga in Tara Institute, who's also 88. And so his health is not good, and he's in hospital, so we can hold him in our prayers and just appreciate what they've done in terms of bringing the Dharma to Australia, and particularly in our tradition, Tibetan tradition. So here we are embarking on this vast topic of refuge, and I'll just put it out there. I think a lot of you here have taken refuge as in terms of the formal ceremony, but we will offer that throughout this course if anybody's interested, either those here or anybody else around the centre. Okay, so yeah. So when we talk about refuge, the first, so before we get to that, there's the usual recommended readings. So I haven't sent the course readings because I didn't know, I didn't have the list of who was. I'm just not sure.
There's one online.
Yeah, I can send to you electronically. I'm not sure if I've got everyone's emails. I mean, I know I've got all of it. Have I got your email? Give it to Pekar and add you to that, and I'll send around the readings. Okay. So then Liberation Palm of Your Hand is in our library, and the Taking Refuge in the Three Jewels. It is a little booklet from FPMT, but also the gold FPMT gold books are over here in the cupboard. They have that whole section in there, exactly the same. So you're quite welcome to borrow those and read those. Okay, so this topic of refuge. So we have, of course, a notion of refuge or asylum, safety. I know when I was at Vajrayana Institute, people go, "Oh, this is like a haven to come to, away from the craziness of Sydney, whatever, and a nice little oasis." So we have those sorts of ideas. So place of shelter or protection from danger, or a refuge from trouble, from concern. And then it says any place or person or thing offering such refuge. So we might see a person as an object of refuge, and certainly when we look at refuge within the Buddhist context, we are talking about Shakyamuni Buddha as the ultimate teacher, and we might have our homes as a place of refuge, or favourite places that we go, which are we feel very connected to, very grounded, or our personal place to go. So we can have many, many different objects of refuge. And so the question, what are our usual objects of refuge? The activities we engage in with as a way of coping with suffering, problems, and so forth, to give a sense of security. Now, it is unfortunate that some people will take drugs as their object of refuge, or what else? Drink, food. Yeah, many, many different objects of refuge that we know only cause more harm. And so that's the thing to see, oh, what I've been chasing after has not provided the safety, freedom from fear that I wish for. It's only led to more and more problems if we engage in those. But I was also thinking we can even, places of travel, like a place to go to that, as soon as our borders opened up, everyone was on a plane somewhere, right? Overseas. Well, I can add myself to that. 3 years later, add myself to that now, having just been overseas. But seeing that places of to go somewhere. And of course, as they say, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. I remember one story that I heard. There's a woman in Italy who was very wealthy, and her son had been kidnapped, 12-year-old, had been kidnapped. And I think he was killed. And so for her, being in her wonderful palatial mansion in Italy, she couldn't stand to be there because it was associated with her son and her grief about her son. But because she was wealthy, she could travel. And so she just would constantly travel around the world, that sort of seeking for some comfort and some ease and some relief from the suffering. So I guess we can see many ways we may have done that in our own lives in various ways. So they would be, sort of usual or conventional objects of refuge when people go away on their holidays and so forth. It's not saying don't ever go on holiday again. Of course not. So then if we talk about the refuge within a Buddhist context. So, for example, in this course, when we were last together, we had a couple of extra weeks on contemplating death. That can be a good reason for one to go to refuge. But also the module that we did on karma, that we start to realise that, with what I've done in my life, any negativities and so forth, I could end up in lower realms. I could end up in animal rebirth or a hellish rebirth or hungry ghost. Particularly, I always think of hungry ghosts around craving and obsession and addiction, things like that. So we could end up in those. And so that's one of the main causes for going for refuges. I don't want that. I don't want that. It's bad enough the sufferings we encounter in the human existence, let alone what we've learnt about, even not in great detail, about lower realms of existence. And I don't want that rebirth. So that becomes a strong motivation. But I think the strongest motivation is our attraction to the Dharma, our attraction to the Buddha and the Sangha who represent that community. That becomes a more powerful, in the positive side, motivation to take refuge, I think. I mean, you can think about what reasons you took refuge and see, those of you who have, and see what motivated you to take refuge. So quite free, welcome to share that if you wish. But that conviction in the ability of these objects of refuge, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, to protect us, to have a power that can guide us spiritually in our lives. And not only this life, protection for all future lives up to enlightenment. So having how we develop that is developing the confidence in the objects of refuge by hearing about them, hearing about their qualities, their powers, their abilities. And so we develop that gradually. We talk about these three types of confidence or faith, but not blind faith. There's sort of clarifying confidence. So this is compared to a water purifying gem. There's actually a water purifying gem that we don't have in our water bottles, but it has Guru Rinpoche's mantra on it, and you put it in your water. It's not so much the purification of it, but the giving blessings as well. Yes.
How does one get such, I think?
Well, it used to be that you could get from Malaysia because the centre there produced a whole lot. I think I didn't check whether FPMT has them available online. I think I might have one that we could use in our place, so it doesn't help anyone else. It was interesting, this sort of purification thing. This is a tangent that when I was on my recent pilgrimage, you were bits and pieces. And I went to see the Tibetan doctor in Delhi before going to Ladakh. And because my main fear was altitude sickness. And yes, some people got very sick. And so he gave me the pills to take in the morning and the evening. And then he said, and also drink, have a drink in the morning before breakfast of Sampa and Indus water, Indus River water. So when we got off the plane in Leh, I said, could you get me some Sampa and Indus River water? Which, you know, I thought you got in a bottle from the shop, but no, they went to the river and got it. And so I had to drink up this mix. So Sampa is the roasted barley. So it was the roasted barley in just flour form. So I'd have every morning. And then I go down to breakfast, and there's this whole bowl there of Sampa ready to go. And I thought, I could have just waited. Anyway, I ended up giving the kilo of Sampa to the restaurant when we left. Yeah, and I thought that was interesting because we take care in India not to drink the water that doesn't come in a bottle, you know, filtered and everything. But they regard the Indus water as sacred. And I know they also regard Ganges as sacred. But if anyone said drink the Ganges, believe me, I'm not going to drink Ganges river water. But have to come very, very high up to do that, which it was in Leh. It was very, very high. So anyway, so this mythological water purifying gem, when placed in dirty water, the murkiness of the water is immediately cleared away. You would say purification. You would say water purifying tablets, wouldn't you? Similarly, when such clarity is generated, the murkiness of the mind is cleared away, and we see clearly the excellent qualities of the object of one's confidence. So that takes time because, first of all, we have to know what the qualities of the Buddha are, what the qualities of the Dharma are, what the qualities of Aryas, what is that, who are they, to be able to, you know, get to the point where we are able to appreciate their excellent qualities. And then we have the confidence of conviction or verified confidence. In other words, we've used analysis. Says again through correct inference, because how do we know who's a Buddha? You know, we don't know. Any being, I was thinking this morning, because a Buddha can take any form. It could be a bridge, you know, so be careful, you know, look after the bridges, look after the roads, look after the ship. Everything, a Buddha can be an object, a Buddha can, you know, manifest in an animal form, in a human form, whatever's needed. And so we don't really know. So we have to infer that, or it says direct experience regarding the object of one's confidence. So we may have had that. We see, you know, as we say, the guru is Buddha in relation to a spiritual teacher. We may have had some direct experience that you think couldn't have happened any other way, like, you know, that, for example, the Lama can read your mind and say something that you've just been thinking, or to respond to what you've just been thinking. Oh, not even use words. I had the Lamp of the Path in North Carolina with Rinpoche, and had all these questions, and I wrote them down on a slip of paper to put in the box to see if I could have an interview with Rinpoche. And then I came into the teaching. This was the first teaching, and I couldn't put into words because Rinpoche didn't say anything, but I felt like, you know, there was this wow. And I was like, oh, okay, my questions are answered. And I couldn't articulate that, but that feeling like is quite a convincing experience, direct experience like that. And then the confidence coupled with wishing or aspiration. So once we've understood the possibility of attaining the goal, in other words, the possibility of being enlightened. And I think for a lot of us, that's such a far away, we'll probably visualize a very, enlightenment is lifetimes away, but that it's possible of attaining the goal because we've learned about the Buddha's life. We've learned about other beings attaining enlightenment in, you know, one brief lifetime of this degenerate age and so forth, that we've seen those examples or read about those examples. And so we have a wish to obtain that for ourselves. Or we, you know, through the image of the Buddha, it's a powerful object. Even people who are not Buddhist are attracted to, has that attraction. And I think it's fascinating that in this era in history, people are so attracted to the Buddha image. They have Buddha images in their house, they're sort of everywhere. And I thought, that's really interesting because I'm not sure that that happened in previous centuries. I mean, I haven't seen images that people just had a decor of the Buddha in their house or something, but it seems to be very common these days. So that's that power of that object. And we need more of that because, you know, just look at all the conflicts in the world. We need more of that representation, reminding us of our own inner qualities and peace and love and caring concern for each other and so forth. So it seems to resonate deeply with us all. Okay. So this is a question. How, or maybe how you have developed confidence in someone or something generally, or in the Buddha or in the Dharma, in the teachings. Is that too open a question? Gradually. Please explain.
Across the Dharma, or you and you go, oh, this is really good, you know, and then you see people who are trying to embody the teachings and you feel, oh, they're just ordinary people like me, maybe I could do that. And then, you know, you study and you practice and something opens up inside of you where you go, I really could.
Really could, which bit?
All of it. I really could do what those other people are doing. I really could become a Buddha.
So gradually.
Gradually for me, yeah.
Okay, anyone else?
I think gradually, I guess, you start to get exposed to different things and go deeper into learning a bit more because there's a form that you can't quite describe, but there's a sense of, I don't know if it's familiarity or just that sense of the body just sort of relaxes. I don't know. That's
It seemed to be what was happening when you taught, body relax and go.
it's just me when particular teaching or practices, particularly around those wrong around mind training.
Yeah.
And then just putting it into practice.
Yeah.
You can really see or notice the mind changing. Or understand from the intention of what the intention is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then taking it off the vision and into the world. So when faced with challenges, I think if I look at potentially how I manage challenges now versus prior to understanding, I think that's there that kind of, well, there's
You see that evidence of the
Yes,
of what the Buddha said, that it's really our own mind, and we have to gain control of our own mind, and we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really
Yeah.
and
Yeah. We had that. It was interesting on this pilgrimage that there was one woman who, from the moment that we hit the ground in Leh, she felt unwell, and she thought it was some pre-existing thing, but it was altitude sickness, and so she was very unwell. And then when we, when you're unwell, your sort of grumpy self comes. So when we were on the roads, which were, we would say you need a 4-wheel drive and a lot of caution to go on when you're sort of going over these rocks and boulders, and there's oncoming traffic, and there's glacial melt. So there's like a waterfall on the road, cows, not cows, well, maybe sometimes cows, but mostly goats and sheep, and the truck stuck on the curb. Yeah, it was like that. And she was like complaining about, I don't. This was the main road, by the way. And then it took her a little while, and she said, I've just turned my mind around and said, this is a pilgrimage. This is like, there are obstacles on the path. She's Buddhist, right? So she had that concept and just realized, and so suddenly her trip became really relaxed, from really intensely to really, and it's a wonderful example.
You can do that practical application like we're talking about, but you can like test it. And you go, and that builds the faith as well. This is very impressed when you told me about that lady being able to actually change her mind.
Yeah, it was great. It is a big thing. It is a big thing. Yeah. So any other ways you've come to conviction for the Dharma Sangha?
Limited. There's a tiny little bit of knowledge that I have already trying to practice in everyday life, and seeing how something really small can suddenly make such a big difference, have such a big difference, impact on others. It's quite astonishing. Whereas I haven't done anything major, just changed how I think or tiny bit maybe, and also having more confidence in myself than in the past. And like to maybe have tried to do the right thing in a particular situation, but I didn't have the confidence because that wasn't the done thing. Society expects you to do what now having Dharma as a backup. It's much easier. You don't need to have to think about it so much.
You just naturally go. Yes.
Yeah, it's like you're in this kind of state of flow.
Yes.
And kind of try to act within that.
Yeah. Because the state of flow is, I think, being in the state of being in sync with reality, with what is. And as you said, it's not what other people might do. Maybe even the majority of people might do, but you instinctively know that this is the right way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So having all those having the confidence, so, and as it says, is it possible to have absolute confidence? I think from what we're saying, the answer is yes. I have no doubt in the powers. I might have doubt in myself, doubt in the powers of Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. And every time I hear somebody reading a new sutra or something, I go, oh, I better read that one. I better learn that one. It seems endless and applicable. And I guess for me too, it's also like, how can a teaching of 2,600 years ago be so relevant to me or to us in this 21st century, completely different cultural setting? But it's because it's just about how our minds work, and that hasn't changed. The externals have, but how our minds work hasn't changed at all. Yeah. Okay. So the objects of refuge, Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, Sangha jewel, or as Lama Zopa Rinpoche calls the three rare sublime ones. So Rinpoche said, if we say jewels, it can sound a bit worldly, Are they diamonds or sapphires? What are they? And we know what we mean when we say the three jewels, triple gem. We know we're all meaning the same thing, but rare and sublime. So to really emphasize, this is rare in the world. We say precious human rebirth's rare, but a Buddha in the world, on one hand they say it's rare, on another hand they say there's Buddhas on every atom of space. But a Buddha that we can access, in other words, taking a form that we can perceive, that we can rely on, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, like lamas and so forth, that we regard as Buddhas, is rare in the world. And of course, then we say even rarer are the students that follow and put into practice. So it's to get a sense of how precious this is. This is not something ordinary. This is the most important thing in my life. And then that can pervade everything that we do. We don't have to say, oh, this is the most important thing in my life, therefore I need to give up everything and become ordained or go and live in a cave for, the rest of my life. Again, I did see on pilgrimage people, I didn't see the people, I saw the places where they were doing that from afar. Those caves up there, at one point, I think it was above Keylong. Anyway, I was like, so where's Tenzin Palmo's cave? That I know is not a cave anymore because there's a lot of erosion, but it's like, it's up there somewhere. Okay, close enough. Of course, there are those beings, but practically, we're going to continue living whatever life we were living before we met the Dharma, and then, but just integrating into, as you've been saying, into our daily interactions and challenges with our mind, and that's the real practice. It's putting it into practice in our daily life. Okay, so this is a quote from Shantideva: "Who will protect me from these great terrors? With staring eyes I'll scour the four directions, looking for a refuge. But when I see no refuge in the four directions, I will give way to utter despair. If these places have no refuge, what will I do then?" So that sense of hopelessness or fear of having no object of refuge. So this is from the Lamrim outlines. So you don't have it in your notes there, but it's in the Lamrim outlines, which is another good source to read. I find it particularly helpful on the refuge. And then there's another one from 150 verses of praise from Matra Chita. I always find it hard to say his name, who was originally a Hindu, quite established Hindu poet. And then he met Aryadeva. So Aryadeva was one of the great expounders of the middle way school, which we follow. And anyway, so once he met Arya Deva, he then became Buddhist and followed in that way. So he was a poet. And if you think about like Milarepa, the songs of Milarepa, Lama Tsongkhapa's Hymn of Experience, all these are said to be, and Shantideva's Bodhisattva's Way of Life, poetry, but coming out of their own realizations. So the Hymn of Experience is basically saying, this is my experience. And so then they passed on that experience in poetic form, beautiful poetic form. His Holiness the Karmapa, the current Karmapa, is also, he writes poetry and then he teaches on the poetry as the Dharma teachings. I'm not saying he does that all the time, but that's part of what he does. And in that way, people can be, the attraction of poetry is it's very short, usually. Well, the Bodhisattva's Way of Life is not short. Yeah, and when you get to chapter 9, neither is it poetry, and that's the most dense one, chapter on wisdom. However, this is a short excerpt. Take refuge in whomever has absolutely no shortcomings, absolutely no blindness, and in whom resides every aspect of all good qualities. When you think of this, respect those who praise him, in other words, the Buddha's disciples, and abide by his teachings. So again, it's saying check up the qualities. So we generally talk about, the 32 major marks and the 80 minor signs of a Buddha, and then we go, well, I don't know what those are. But we can, when we meditate on Shakyamuni Buddha, we often call to mind different qualities, not that all of those in the sort of that are indicated in the guided meditations. But it's good to think, well, what are those other qualities and what do they represent? So just a few examples. Because there are a lot, as you can imagine, with 112 to go through. So regarding the head of the Buddha, the excellent signs, the top of a Buddha's head has a crown protrusion, so this Ujnisha, made of radiant flesh, round and circling clockwise, because we can't see the circling, but we can think about it like that. When seen from a distance, it seems to be 4 finger widths high, but upon closer scrutiny, its height can never be measured. So I saw an exhibition there was in Sydney at the Art Gallery, New South Wales, and it was the Hindu, and I think I've mentioned before, Hindu and Buddhist goddesses. It was called goddesses, deities. And so it showed one of the Hindu ones with this Ujnisha going up, a long way. So that's that sense of, it looks like this high, but it's actually inconceivable height, representing all the realizations of the Buddha. So the idea it can't be measured. A Buddha's cheeks are round and full like those of a lion. So it's saying this feature often is giving reference to the jawbone, or it might be the chin, so like a lion. Except for the crown protrusion, a Buddha has a perfectly rounded head in the shape of a dome. A Buddha's forehead is wide from side to side and top to bottom. So those who do, who have the visual artistic skill, which I don't have, and you have these grids, and it shows you all the dimensions of the Buddha's head, the Buddha's body, and how to make those dimensions so they're perfectly fit. A Buddha's forehead is also flat, with a clear, well-defined hairline. And then the hair, a Buddha's bodily hair grows upwards. A Buddha's bodily hair curls clockwise, with never more than one hair growing from each paw. So we see that in the hair on the head, with each hair perfectly coiled clockwise. And the way I relate to that is being ethical discipline. Everything's under control, everything's in place, everything's perfect. A Buddha has a white treasure-like curl of hair on his mid-brow that curls very tightly clockwise. So this is this. Is it represented by a jewel there? I can't see.
It's like a white sort of
Yeah.
teardrop.
Yeah, it's like a white teardrop. So it's representing a white hair. And then it comes out, and then the cushion tightly curls back. Treasure hair.
What are the trays like?
Yeah. So it's often represented by a pearl, but it means that's that treasure hair. Yeah. It extends a huge distance, and when it released, it tightly recoils. A Buddha is either completely bald or has a full crop of hair. The colour of the Buddha's hair is a vivid black blue. Buddha's hair is soft and smooth, is very fine and silky. A Buddha's hair never becomes matted or tangled. Each hair is distinct and curls in a clockwise pattern. A Buddha's hair has a naturally sweet fragrance. So that's just a couple of examples. And I was thinking at the moment when I was required to put on Kadrala's headset. And so she's got long black hair, dakini hair, as they say. And at that moment, I think I got a hint of what dakini hair means, because I was just mesmerized. I was just like, you know, I couldn't move. And it's like, and then snap out of it. People are waiting. She's waiting to teach. Put it on. You know, it was just like, wow. Just the power of it. I mean, what I thought was I was just putting on her headset, but I wasn't expecting to be zapped. I was zapped. So things like that. Okay. So then we talk about the different qualities of a Buddha. So the Buddha being free from all fears. In the Heart Sutra, it talks about gone beyond fear. There's no fears either of going down to the lower realms of samsara or abiding in nirvana, in the bliss of liberation. No fear of anything. That would be a useful skill, to have no fear. And you're not thinking, oh, what would so-and-so say? Or maybe I'll get into trouble. Or, you know, maybe I'll get the sack. Or
maybe I can't.
Or maybe I can't, or end up in prison, like with the ship of the crew where the captain was going to kill the 500. No thought of, well, I should really kill him, but I better not do that because I'll end up in prison. No, I'm saving him, I'm saving them. Yeah, so gone beyond all fears. I can't even imagine. But I definitely hope. That's an attractive one. Just give me that one, I'm fine. But on top of that, the Buddha has the skillful means to free others from fears. When we say free others from fears, it's free others from samsara. Of course, the Buddha said, I can't do it. I can show you the way. It's up to you to do. And like His Holiness the Dalai Lama said when he said he won't be traveling anymore, more than 5 hours, he said, to my American friends, I've taught you all there is. Now it's up to you. It's like, I can't do it for you. I've given you all the teachings that you need to progress to enlightenment. So, like that. And then a Buddha has great compassion for all living beings, whether they are close to him or not. So that's that impartial mind, that even regard for all beings without exception. Every single sentient being. And the Buddha fulfills the aims of all living beings, whether they have helped him. Usually it says whether or not they have helped him, but it's like whether they've helped or harmed. So many examples of those of where the Buddha's been harmed by someone, but then has helped them, like his jealous cousin Devadatta, who was jealous of the Buddha's popularity and not his own. Yeah. Okay. Then we have what we call the 10 powers of a Buddha. So there's all these lists of qualities. Of course, we say 84,000 qualities. We say endless 100 million. I think in the King of Golden, not the King of Golden, King of Prayers. That every atom of the body combines all these excellent qualities. The power of knowing all the consequences of karmic actions. So we talked about previously how karma is very hidden. In one way, it at a crude, gross level, it's obvious. A positive brings a positive, a negative brings a negative. And we get that at that level, but the actual individual karmic actions and results, we don't know. But a Buddha knows those karmic actions, the consequences of different karmic actions. When I see that someone like Geshe Sultram up at Chenrezig, over at Chenrezig Institute, with this grand vision to build Gompa on top of the hill, I've now got experience of many Gompas on top of mountains with a lot of steps. I tell you, my step counter was going berserk while we were on pilgrimage, because it's just like, you get to the place and you've already gone up high and just like, how many steps are we going to? A lot. And they're all big and uneven and yeah, whatever. But anyway, so what was I talking about here? Geshe Sultram. So his big vision for that place. He's already been responsible for the Nalanda Masters Garden. So that's like the 17 Nalanda Master statues, plus, adding in a few other statues as well in there. And now this is coming up. It's like his whole life is dedicated to creating holy objects and places like for other people to come along later and practice and so forth. So a huge, huge vision. And you think, yeah, knowing the karmic consequences of that in a positive way, it's like Lam Tsongkhapa, just having this unstoppable motivation to create holy objects in the world. We don't know the power of those holy objects in the world ongoing. But again, Lama Yeshe, the one thing in his will was the Maitreya Buddha statue. That was his will, build Buddha. It makes me feel confidence when you think about a will and what can I possibly give away? I don't really have anything to give away. But if you put in your will, build this, there you go. Huge merit. And we don't know that merit of what the merit of the Maitreya statue will have, or all the other statues also that Lama Zopa Rinpoche has indicated. And people go, why put the money in a statue when you could provide this and that and the other thing? Well, in the building of that statue, they were providing the school, the house, everything else for the community. So it's not at the expense of those things. But being a Buddha means that you know the importance of that. And for us, we can say, well, look how affected I've been by seeing an image of the Buddha. I can think about how willing I was to go on pilgrimage to all these very high places and road trips that were long. And it's just like, we're going 12 hours to see a monastery. Not only are we going 12 hours, we're going 12 hours on this sort of road and wondering if we're ever going to get there. About that insurance policy, yeah, etc. But you're willing to do that because you know the benefits of, what you're going to experience when you get there. Particularly when they were active monasteries that have been active since, 8th century, 11th century. We went to one nunnery that was at Sopemo. So Sopemo was the lake where Guru Rinpoche, where they say lotus born. And so the story there is because Geshe Santen said to us, the lake is the most important part. So we did Kora around the lake, not as easy as I thought there was just one nice path around. That's not, but anyway, we did do Kora and of the huge statue as well. But up the hill in the cave where they have it, we did Guru Rinpoche's practice. And there was a nunnery there, 46 nuns. And it's like in the middle of a mountain up there, and you think, how do they sustain themselves? No idea. But, they do, and they're all there doing practice. And yeah, and most of the times people aren't going there because they're going down where the lake is and the statue is, where the action is, which is probably quite nice for them. But, you know, the power of beings in this world practicing like that is very, very profound if we believe that, you know, the positive energy that's generated from it, it's rippling out, having great effects on the environment. So like when I was in 2006, the Kala Chakra at Amravati, and the chief minister of the state, the equivalent to the premier, announced with this many people reciting mantras over this 2-week period, the whole environment is going to be transformed. And I tried to think of a premier of Australia, any premier of Australia, sat talking like that, right? But
he's probably a Hindu as well.
He was probably Hindu, yeah, but he really believed in that, and yeah, wonderful. Okay, so they know all the karmic results in detail of everything, every action we do, every action that's done by all beings. The power of knowing the various wishes of all living beings. So knowing our aspirations, knowing what we want to say. If we think about our teachers, and they can know what our aspirations are and advise us accordingly in terms of our Dharma practice perfectly. They might also advise us according to what obstacles they see that we don't see ahead. Like me being told, you know, when I wanted to go to Laudo to basically go to sea level of Gaia and do Nyondro there. So I couldn't see that I had any health issues at that time. So it's very handy to have those advices. The power of knowing the various predispositions, so whatever our capacities are. So even we're all, let's say, practicing Mahayana Dharma, different students will get different instructions according to, you know, their level of practice, not as a judgment, but as this is going to be most beneficial for you right now, right? And so we get different advices accordingly. The power of knowing the scope of all beings. Again, this relates to our capacity, you know, that if we're lower scope practitioner, middle scope practitioner, great scope practitioner, or even within being great scope practitioner, where we are in terms of the land rim, the graduated path to enlightenment, what stage are we at? So therefore, again, being able to advise us accordingly. And the different meditations appropriate for the liberation of each being. So that ties into that. The power of knowing the previous lives of all beings. So if we have Shakyamuni Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, and they say in the first quarter of the night, saw his own past lives, and the second quarter, all the past lives of all other sentient beings. So knowing exactly what our past lives, what still needs to be purified that we haven't previously purified, and then meantime has accumulated, you know, sort of greater negativity, also what virtue that we've accumulated in all those past lives, So like being the ultimate psychologist, knowing exactly where we've come from, so naturally exactly how to guide us into future lives. The power of knowing the body leaving process in death and rebirth of all living beings. So it's not that everything is fixed and we just wait, okay, you're going to die at such and such a time and this is how it's going to happen, because we do know that, yes, there is a throwing karma, which pretty much determines the length of our life. You know, when my mother was coming towards the end of her life, and she felt like she'd been around for too long already. And she says, why am I still here? And I just said, because you've been such a wonderful person and because you've offered such support to so many people. And all of that was true, because you rather than say, oh, that was because in a past life you accumulated all of this and you've got to, just to say, it's okay, you know, it's not. I think maybe she felt like I'm lingering and I'm not being of benefit because she had been so active. And when you get to a point where you're not so active, so why am I still here? It's not that, oh, there's lessons you still need to learn. No, it's just that's your karma to be alive. And for us as Dharma practitioners, as long as we've got the capacity to work with our mind, it's a great opportunity. The body can be failing, but it's a great opportunity to continue our practice and keep going. And so knowing how we're going to take rebirth, again, Geshe Dawa in Sydney, when one of our previous directors at the centre passed away, knowing the rebirth, he said she's been reborn in Vajrayogini's Pure Land. And we're like, wow, we knew she was pretty amazing, but that was wow. And that gives you that confidence. Oh, people can do that. People I know, you know, I know. Well, she was reborn in Vajrayogini's Pure Land. How amazing is that? So that's very reassuring. And the power of knowing which obstacles have been abandoned by each living being. Now, you could immediately go into a cringe posture like me. Oh no, haven't purified. But given that, probably don't remember. I'd say mostly I might remember all the negativity I've done in this life. But do I really? Let alone I wouldn't know anything of any past lives, any negatives, obstacles that haven't been removed. I know what my experience in this life is, which tells me there's still a long way to go. And so, but now I have we have that opportunity to work with that, you know, as we, whether it's Vajrasattva practice on a daily basis or prostrations or any practices at all, where we apply the 4 opponent powers to be able to purify. And then, you know, best to say, and whatever else I've done since beginningless time that has not yet been purified, that has done harm to any living being, blah, 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 blah. You know, sort of your blanket statement for absolutely everything. Okay. Any questions, comments?
Last one again.
The power of knowing which obstacles have been abandoned by every living being, each living being.
That's a positive though, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah.
But I was just making a
because
suggestion that Buddha knows what we don't know.
Oh.
And in what it is, which ones you've abandoned, but also which ones you have yet to abandon.
Oh, of course, that would be right. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start on this one. The 18 qualities of a Buddha not shared by an arhat. So when we talk about arhat, we'd be talking about, in our tradition, the Arya Bodhisattva. So a being, in any case, a being who has a direct realization of emptiness. So they haven't yet completed the path. In our presentation, you haven't yet completed the path. You're not yet an enlightened being. So what you have purified is what we call the afflictive obscurations. All our disturbing emotions and so forth. But what is still to be purified is the imprints on our mind. So they no longer have the potency to ripen, they've been weakened, but there is still those imprints on the mind. And sometimes when you see stories of bodhisattvas and something, they still have this sort of quirky cough or something like this and that, because that one has not yet, that imprint, even though they're no longer, particularly you get the Arya bodhisattvas on what we call the pure grounds, 8, 9, 10, working their way well, they become irreversible bodhisattvas, means they're never going to fall down to lower levels. But there's still these imprints which we call cognitive obscurations or knowledge obscurations, which may mean nothing, whereas it's quite handy to think imprints that are just, they don't have the potency, shall we say, to germinate and actually full-blown come life, but it's still there. So these 18 qualities are ones that Buddhas have and the Arya Bodhisattvas don't. So a Buddha's body does not have any displeasing qualities. So as we've talked about, people are attracted regardless. To us, we'd say definitely no displeasing characteristics, but then, there have been Buddha images destroyed in wars. So, yeah, think about, and if we think about our gurus as Buddhas, we're also cultivating that mind of not seeing any displeasing characteristics. They may have quirky ways of speaking, acting, they all have their own characters. On this pilgrimage, when we were in Leh, it was Guru Rinpoche Day, which we celebrate on the full moon of the 5th Tibetan month, 15th of the 5th Tibetan month. And so we were at this monastery in Leh with the Geshe who runs it was a classmate of Geshe Thubten at J. And he's also Ladakhi, so he'd gone back to Ladakh and set up this Nari Institute, which was not the actual school, but providing accommodation, food, clothing, medicines, everything for Tibetan orphans and people from poor families, kids from poor families or so forth, so they got a proper education. And the two Geshes led the puja. They sat opposite each other, but their characteristics were very different from each other, like in terms of, they're completely different characters, shall we say. Can I just make a request, Judah?
It's in progress.
So it's not saying they don't have their, it's about not putting the Dharma on the ground.
Okay.
Okay, got that one.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Here we put the Dharma text up highest of everything because it's the Dharma that is the most important in our lives. Yeah. So no displeasing qualities. And why I was mentioning about the different characteristics, it's not to it's not to think, oh, they're not perfect in whether our idea of perfection is whatever that currently is. If you look at, what was it, the Renaissance period, and voluptuous bodies were the perfect bodies. These days it seems to be, you have to be like a stick.
Oh, and muscles are coming.
Oh, and muscles are in. Okay, you have a muscly Buddha. A Buddhist speech does not contain any exclamations. Now, when I think of Lamas of Rinpoche going, wow, 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 amazing, amazing, that's a lot of exclamations. That's a lot of exclamations. However, it's more the sense of you have your control on your speech. So if you're doing those vows and amazing, sometimes I think Refuge was just waking us up because he'd been teaching so long. But that, you know, having control, and we talk about, there are 64 qualities of the Buddha's speech. We talk about, particularly about the gentle speech, like Manjushu, gentle speech, literally what it means. It doesn't mean it can't be really powerful, as I look at the tower over here, the power of speech. A Buddha's mind never forgets anything. So recollecting own past lives, other beings' past lives. Again, when meeting Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and then you would meet Rinpoche again, and Rinpoche would say, "Where are you from?" And you'd be like, "I told you that last time." Don't you remember? But on the other hand, I would hear Rinpoche saying to people, "I told you that 20 years ago." So watch out. It was interesting that, you know, working with Indigenous people, and I was asked to give a talk at the Kuri Centre at Sydney Uni years ago. And then subsequently, it was a few years later, and I met up with the coordinator from there who asked me to give the talk, and I was reintroducing myself, and she said, "I remember you, like, I've met you," implying, why would I forget? I've met you. So there are these powers that the more we develop clarity, the more we develop, like we talk about the 9 stages to shamatha, but the more we develop that clarity, the more we don't forget, the more we even remember as we get more and more clarity, and the mud sort of settles a bit more. A Buddha never leaves his meditative concentration even when acting. So it's only, they say it's only a Buddha who can do that. Be in meditative equipoise and at the same time acting for the welfare of all sentient beings. So only a Buddha, it is said, can do those 2 things at once. Buddha does not experience any false appearances. In other words, Buddha sees reality just as it is. And when we say, but if a Buddha sees ultimate reality, how does a Buddha get around in the conventional world? They see that as well. So they can see conventional truth and ultimate truth simultaneously. So it's not like they go around bumping into things. You know. In fact, they're so, you know, so their mind is as quick as thought. So my experience being around, like, with always the Dalai Lama, Geshe Thubten, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you're trying to lead them and they're scooted off down. So, excuse me, I'm leading you. No, no, you are way behind, girl. Yeah. A Buddha. So yeah, so they see everything, like there's no elaboration. We impose, as soon as we see something, we have a generic image of it. It's then like we relate to that image rather than the reality. I think we most can notice that with people, and that we have an image of someone and then that's it. And I'm sure we've all had that experience where you feel like somebody's relating to their image of you rather than you as you are right there now. It's just like, you, I'm here. I'm not that, I'm this. Yeah. A Buddha is never so indifferent as to not check who is ready to make spiritual progress and to help him or her accordingly. So we could say that the very fact that we encountered the Dharma is like a result of a Buddha's enlightened activity. The fact that we were ready to meet the Dharma. The fact that we were able to take the next step. In fact, some texts talk about that all of our positive experiences are the blessings of the Buddha. So we can think about things in that way. Of course, it's a result of our positive action or our positive karma ripening, but that we're receiving the blessings of the Buddha all the time, Buddhas all the time, and that the more that we engage in virtue, the more we experience that sort of feel-good feeling. Certainly the first time that I went to a teaching with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for the next 6 months, I felt like I was floating on a cloud. You know, of course that wanes. But, you know, like, wow, that powerful energy. You know, and then His Holiness the Karmapa, when he came from Tibet to India, and he was a teenager, and then when he started teaching, his energy was so great that people, men, women, would be swooning, you know, as he taught. And the Dalai Lama says, contain your energy and wear sunglasses, because it was just like the energy was too powerful. And you think, what would it be like if they were in their full power? Well, we'd probably all be collapsed in a heap, you know, just like, bring it in, you know, bring your energy in. So, of course, when we read about all the qualities of the Buddha, and we talk about this awe, it goes on meters and meters around the Buddha. And when the Buddha first encountered his sort of 5 previous seekers, and they became the first 5 students, and first of all, because they thought he'd lost the plot, because he'd eaten food, blah, 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 they thought, you know, they heard on the grapevine that Buddha was coming, and they said, right, we're just going to ignore him. But then when he appeared, there was such powerful energy that they were just like, whatever you got, teach us. Give it to us. And the Buddha's good intentions never declined. So if we, if you think about even like Chenrezig, the story of Chenrezig, of, you know, being in long retreat and out of great compassion for all beings and wishing them to be free of suffering. And then when he opens his eyes and sees there's still suffering in the world, and that tear came. And of course, 2 tears came. So out of this one came green Tara, swiftly liberated, said, don't worry, I'll help you. And out of this one, white Tara, longer. So that, and then 21 Taras emanating to help aid Chenrezig, but also Guru Rinpoche then splitting the body, his body. Chenrezig said, if I ever have a moment of weakening of my motivation to free all sentient beings, may my body be split into 1,000 pieces. And that's how we ended up with 1,000 Chenrezig. It was split into about, Amitabha Buddha. So his Amitabha Buddha, the Buddha of infinite light, and put out of seeing his great compassion, that this was a result of great compassion, put him all back together again, 1,000 arms, each with an eye, looking out to benefit sentient beings. So the Buddha never gives up. They never give up on us. Even we give up on us. That Buddha never gives up on us. I feel great courage and gratitude for that. Sorry, this microphone's being different this week.
I think you've got the bit that is turned in against you because it's crackling when you move.
But then it's worse.
How about, no, I should put it back there because that's the only way I can hold it there. Okay, just one more. A Buddha's enthusiastic perseverance never declines. So, you know, we can think that a Buddha will, for eons and eons and eons, for our benefits, and that never wanes. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, never give up. Whatever you do, whatever happens, never give up. Having that, you know, enthusiastic perseverance, whereas sometimes we might do you know, okay, well, I achieved that. And then the next step goes wrong. I give up now. You know, we've got to sustain that and grow that sort of perseverance to continue on in our Dharma practice. Not that we're wanting to advertise to others, but to continue on regardless of what others around might think or say or whatever, that we're very determined. As we said, the Dharma practice is the practice, main practice is the practice in action, to not give up. Even, you know, we put that into practice and we don't get a good response. Like, you know, when I was working at Norigili in New South Uni, and my boss was upset because the students were gossiping about her, and it wasn't true what they were saying. And I was saying to her, look, that's what students do. You're the boss. They're going to tell stories about you. And she was like, no, I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I'm going to find out. It's just like, just relax. It's just students being students. But so I thought, drop it, because she's only getting more agitated. I didn't have a skillful means of what to say that might help in that situation. So it's like, you try things out, you drop it, but you don't give up. You know, just think, okay, I've got to get better in my strategies, that's all. And we were good friends. I knew her well. It's just I didn't know how to deal in that situation. So when we don't know how to deal, just, you know, pray for guidance, or, you know, just think, well, I'm not going to give up. Buddha hasn't given up on me. I'm not going to give up on myself. You know, if the Buddha hasn't, why should I? Try again. Okay, so I might leave it there for today, because I also just a reminder about this coming weekend, having the joy of Geshe Zopa and having the celebration of Chokyi Duchen, the Buddha's first teaching, so bringing the Dharma into the world. Very special day on Friday. 100 million times the merits, everything we do. I think Venerable Pekar's looking for some people to help out. If she hasn't already nabbed you, I know just about everyone's here is doing something already.
Everyone here's spoken.
Everyone's spoken. Yeah, because we're going to completely transform this place. There's a few more things to be done on the Tara altar before the consecration on Sunday, but they're under control. And
Apparently an email will come.
oh, an email will go out for volunteers to help. Great, great.
So again, if you receive that and you already put your hand up for sufficient, don't stress.
It'll all come together on the day. No, it's got to come together before the day. So what's our first Wednesday? Wednesday, you're having a big Georgian here.
Yes.
Anytime after 10?
After 10. We get enough people, we could judge elsewhere around premises.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you guys are accounted for. Yeah. And then, yeah, Friday's the next time. Thursday, Friday.
Friday afternoon at 3.
Okay.
Saturday morning at 8.
So Saturday morning we have the Bhutanese coming, and they're going to be Bhutanese communities offering lunch to people on Saturday, which is very wonderful to have them coming along. And yeah, and then we've got the teaching Saturday, Sunday. So spread the word, right? Particularly for the Tara altar consecration, because Tara has a drawing power of her own that seems to be pretty amazing. And you know, that's open to absolutely everybody. It's a free event. Nobody has to commit to anything. Just to Geshe Zopa said we'll be having a party. So that's it. Come along if you can. All right, so we'll dedicate our merits.
For the course that's starting in an hour.
Oh yes, this afternoon, if anyone's got the stamina for it, stick around. We're having some ritual training on Guru Puja. So, and then in a month's time we'll be on Tara, and then it'll be on Medicine Buddha. So we're just rolling these out over the next few months and appreciating, for those of you here, might be really full on to spend the whole day, but if you wish to, everyone's welcome. I don't think there's a Zoom option set up. We'll be doing a lot of practical stuff. We'll do again and again and again. Okay, dedications, page 16. Third verse down. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the precious body mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Page 19, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's long life prayer. Jikten kandi pende malupam gang le shungwe sampe yishi do ka duen songme tenzin gat solan so adetsu Tu for Tenzanoso, page 23, Mama prayer. Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddha's teachings, O foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme. O Lama, please, please live long. So we don't have in here the swift return prayers. Yeah, we can do the first one.
These are the new ones. I'll start from the front.
So we'll recite the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, on page 5.
Yeah.
Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Prachika Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceived truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jaws and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, thank you very much. And due to Geshe Zopa's visit, we'll begin having a couple of weeks break before we continue on with this module. Thank you for your assignment.